It's incredible to me what Justin Trudeau and his government thinks is appealing to the average Canadian. So, Justin Trudeau and Housing Minister Sean Fraser have just rolled out the new Liberals' housing plan, and as expected, the vast majority of the legacy media dropped the ball in covering what this actually all entails. They mostly just cover the $6 billion price tag, and look, they're spending so much money tackling this big issue, even though they've spent massive amounts of money in the past, and housing starts have only gone down, and housing prices have only increased because they haven't stopped the massive flow of immigration in this country. But this time, don't worry, they're back with a new plan that will definitely help the problem out this time, I guess. And really, this plan just involves destroying the traditional neighborhood in Canada and trying to make everything extremely densified because that's easier than cutting taxes or actually cutting building regulations that are completely unnecessary. But before I get into that, I just quickly want to plug the fact that Wyatt Claypool, am running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination. It's on the west side of Calgary. It's this riding right here. This is what the boundaries will look like after the boundaries change in late April. So if you live in this riding, buy a Conservative Party membership and check out my website in the description below, wyattclaypool.com. But anyways, to get into it, and this actually does have a lot of effect on the city I'm living in. Jody Gondek, our terrible mayor, is trying to introduce blanket rezoning, which is the heart and soul of the Liberals' new housing plan, that we can basically increase housing builds by incentivizing every single city with effectively bribes to just wipe out zoning. Who needs zoning? I don't know. Maybe normal people who want to live in normal neighborhoods. They don't want to live right next to apartment buildings that they did not sign up for to be in their neighborhoods. When you purchased a home and when the land was zoned for a certain type of housing, that was probably a leading reason why you bought into that area, because it had nice soccer fields, a park, there was everything was single family detached homes. It had a really nice suburban middle class feel. And now what Trudeau's doing, in order to not actually address the real policy problems he's caused with immigration, high taxes, regulations, and all this other stuff, as well as local governments who have contributed the exact same way with property taxes and way too many environmental and building code regulations. They are now just going to make it so that more houses can be jammed into smaller areas of land. So are they actually making housing cheaper? Well, not at all. Housing's actually going to get much more expensive. What they're going to do is give you smaller portions of land to live on, and ergo, technically your house is cheaper, but your house is also far crappier and your neighborhood is far crappier. Plus, the land itself might actually skyrocket in value, because now when anything can be built on that land, you're not just buying a single family detached homes like property, you're buying the property that could put up an apartment building or a triplex, quadruplex, or even sixplex. And this is something they're actually pushing for. This is a tweet that Housing Minister Sean Fraser put out. He says, update. Our housing catalog will include new designs this year for fourplexes, sixplexes, row housing, garden suites, and modular designs. Can't wait to launch. Wow, he can't wait to destroy your neighborhood. And it's not that there can't be areas of a city that have these types of housing, and they're not terrible, but you don't really want these massive housing conglomerates in your neighborhoods. It kind of changes the character of the place that you bought into. You paid $400,000 back in the day for your house, or these days you're paying like $1.5 million for your house, or at least that's what your mortgage is. And right now, you have, right now, in a lot of these cities, you could just start living next to a sixplex, which is going to completely degrade the value of your home, and it's going to change the neighborhood. Also included in this plan is just the Liberals buying up rental properties off the market and then maintaining them at extremely low rents. So you might even be living next to subsidized housing. Nothing wrong with some people getting subsidized housing who really need it. The disabled, a couple of single mothers who just can't possibly get any funds to pay for a rent. That's fine. But just having a blanket bloated government program is going to lead to a lot of derelict properties, as always happens in every area where the government just flips the bill for people's rents and requires nothing from them but basically just filling out paperwork. Here's Justin Trudeau announcing this plan.
We need more affordable housing buildings just like this one right across the country. Unfortunately, too many of those places are under constant threat of being demolished to build condos or sold to speculators and large corporations that will increase rents at turnover. People are being priced out of their communities, and that's not okay. So we have to help nonprofits and community partners acquire units and preserve rents at a stable level. That's why we're here to announce the $1.5 billion Canada Rental Protection Fund.
It's a nonsense policy, and notice how it's going to be just nonprofits and probably housing nonprofits running this thing. And the problem with these nonprofits is they tend to be very left-wing in their worldview. So their goal isn't to maintain communities while also having some rent subsidized units for people to live in. Their only goal in life is to give people properties to live in, like sight unseen, if they're actually living up to living up to the standard that we would say, yes, that person maybe deserves some subsidized housing. In every place where there's subsidized housing, anyone gets it, and it usually brings crime into neighborhoods because you're bringing people into neighborhoods who potentially didn't need the subsidized housing. They're just the type of people who like taking advantage of programs like that. But also notice how he's like fear-mongering against, well, people are raising people's rents, or they're trying to kick them out of their homes so that they can like gentrify an area and build condos. Guys, the rest of your plan is literally that. It is incentivizing people to sell their homes for massive amounts of profit because now their land can be used for anything, so that developers can stick apartment buildings and triplexes, sixplexes in those areas. You guys have a completely contradictory housing plan, and this will not make anyone's housing cheaper. This just makes this actually makes the square foot cost of a house way more. Just the government's dividing it up a little bit more. So here's a fifth of a house. Here is what used to be just one property that we've built a triplex, quadruplex on, and now you get a fourth of the property to live on, but it's technically cheaper because you bought this quarter of land for $500,000 rather than the full $750,000, $800,000 that it used to be. If anything, this is a massive handout to developers who already own the land and now can just jam as many people on these properties as humanly possible. This is disgusting to me. It is the destruction of the traditional family neighborhood. I actually want neighborhoods to feel family friendly. And when it just becomes dumping ground for everybody to live there, it's no longer a middle class, nice community with the soccer fields and the parks. Because remember too, a lot of cities like Calgary are going to start selling off parkland so that they can start building more large construction projects on them. Guys, just lower immigration. We don't need 500,000 new residents every single year, and we don't need more like temporary foreign workers and students, 500,000 temporary foreign workers and students, and around 500,000 permanent residents. We're bringing in like 1.1 million people in a year. Some of them are temporary, but the immigration system's so loose, usually they can get on a pathway to being permanent residents anyways. It's ridiculous. And this is actually what I found when I walk around my own community door knocking for my conservative nomination. New immigrants are actually some of the people most open to the idea of heavily reducing immigration because they've gone through the system. They notice how everything's so expensive on the other end and how bloated the system is. They want to see less people coming in behind them. And no, it's sort of selfish, but at the end of the day, we all have to look out for ourselves and our own families. If you've ever been on a plane traveling somewhere and it's stuffed to the gills, you're not thinking, well, I wouldn't want any of these people deprived of a plane seat, so I think we should even load more people on this plane because I'm pro-travel. No, everyone who's ever been on an overpacked flight tends to get a little bit antsy about planes being overstacked. And that's a video for another day. If you ever get mad at an airline, don't get mad at the airline, get mad at the government for putting a 27 to 30% tax on your ticket, because an airport whose services probably should be something that are government subsidized, you actually have to pay for through the taxes on your plane tickets. So it's a system where air travel costs a lot and the airlines are incentivized to stuff as many people into a plane because the government is effectively stealing their profit margin away by demanding large sums of money to maintain the airport, which the government does very poorly and for way too much money that the airlines have to pay for. Anyways, So, but this just brings me around to the fact that the Liberals are about to fail again on housing. They've had 2 or 3 housing plans before this. Each of them had billion-dollar price tags, and just because this one costs more than the last one doesn't mean it's very good. If anything, it's going to probably just make housing in shorter supply because people aren't going to want to build in Canada. People aren't going to want to buy in Canada because what you get for your money is not worth the cost anymore. You'd rather move to Texas, Florida, Idaho, Montana, and buy something simple in a place where you can actually afford your own groceries. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. Another plug. Again, I'm Wyatt Claypool. I'm running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination. If you live in that area, if your current MP is Ron Liepert, that's the area I'm running in Calgary. And then so also I have a legal fund I'm running with the National Telegraph because we're being sued by a ridiculous billionaire trying to sue us for defamation because we mentioned him in an article about Aaron O'Toole, and apparently our mention of him was defamatory, even though everything we said about him that was somewhat negative was linking to a Globe and Mail article, so we never even said anything new about him. He just got mad at us for even mentioning old reporting, and he's suing us even though he never sued the Globe and Mail for what they said. Ridiculous. It's cost me $26,000 defending us. So if you can contribute anything to that, it really helps me out. I just had another $3,000 bill come up in order to top up my retainer for my lawyer. My lawyers are actually not even like pricing their hours that much for me. They're very strict on what they consider actual working hours and not. So they're not throwing bills at me all over the place. They've been very friendly. So this $26,000, if I was at any other law firm that didn't like me as much, would have probably been more like 40,000 by this point. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys later.